Welcome everyone. Thanks for being here. I'm Italian, but this talk will be in English because why not? So thanks for choosing this talk about Next.js and the modern stack. I'm a little nervous today, so I'm sorry if I'm not perfect, but let's get into it. I'm Riccardo. I'm a software developer and also self-proclaimed UX UI designer. This is my path. I started as a computer science degree in Trento. Then I did 1 year during COVID as a software developer. Then I studied UX UI design, which was very helpful to create human connection in technology. And since 2022, I'm a freelancer, so I do websites for customers and startups sometimes. So, this is my experience. Today we are going to talk about, first, have an overview of the history of web development, how we got here to what we use today. Then we're going to have an overview on React, some features available, how we can do stuff with the server and client side JavaScript. We're going to do a little game, guess the frequency, and then see more in depth all the rendering methods for Next.js. So you probably already saw this many times. This is the first web page ever created. It's still available in a special URL. This is just plain HTML, nothing more, no CSS, no JavaScript. Very simple, but working and fast, of course. And this is the ideal approach. So ideally, we want to visit a URL and get back a page, an HTML, and just navigate. But, many frameworks try to bring interactivity with dynamic pages. We have much more complex infrastructure. If we have plenty of users, we have to manage this. So there were many frameworks which tried to solve this problem. Server first. So we just worked mostly on the server with PHP first, Java, server pages, and stuff like that. But in real life, it's even more complex. Data can be dynamic. We may want just some parts to be dynamic. We may want to dynamically load on a click. We may want to show tables with pagination. We may want to, at the same time, limit the compute on the server or on the client, so to not ship too much JavaScript to the client. We also have to manage caching, so we want to be also efficient on the database calls, the fetching calls. We want too much all together. But this would be perfect, right? So we can already see there are many macro areas about web development from client side. So how we ship to the client, how we make interactivity, how we get data from the server, or how we get directly data from the server as generating the HTML page. We have to manage API endpoints if you want to expose data to the client. And also, of course, caching validation, which, as we already know, probably, this famous quote by Phil, one of the two of the hardest things are caching validation and naming things. So here we are. So welcome JavaScript. As a previous talk said, it was done in 10 days. And this is the result. So a mess, in the sense, this is wanted, actually. This is a feature, not a bug. But it's very funny to see and try and manage to find weird behavior with comparison and operators between different types in JavaScript. And from JavaScript, then to jQuery and the evolution of web development, we can kind of have an overview of what happened with all the frameworks. These are all frameworks, except jQuery is a library, and React is a library, actually, as they say, for interactivity. And we can see that from 2010, it kind of got on. So a lot of companies try to create their own framework to use features which help the developer to create a website more complex, but also in an easier way. And it got so much fast as an evolution that frameworks started copying each other. So we have all these arrows which try to mimic how, one framework got inspiration from the other, trying to solve the problems, but also at the same time it was used as a reference and so on. It kept going and going. It's still going. For example, you may have used Angular. Angular didn't have server components until not so much ago, and it was copied by other frameworks like Next, and so on. So it's all copy and paste, but it's for a good cause. So yeah, this was 2015 era, frameworks everywhere until 2022. It's still going, but this is now being replaced by new memes, which is AI. You'll now find a lot of new companies just using AI, so we have a new problem. So back to React. How can we use React? React was born as a library for client-side interactivity. Oops. We can see on the right column all the available interactivity features and functions like use state, use effect, and so on. So we basically made HTML a functional programming, which was not, how it's taught, because HTML is imperative, it's fixed. And so this was very helpful and was weird at the beginning, but it was accepted. And eventually React evolved so much that it started being integrated on the server. So now it's used to fetch data, to access the backend, and do a lot of cool things. So actually, React is always run on the server first. I don't know if you knew this, but when you visit a page, also without React server components and stuff like that, dynamic data, you always generate from React, which is like the functional template. You run it on the server, you generate an HTML, and you just send it to the client, which is not interactive until the client attaches the React script, and which is a process called iteration, and then becomes interactive. So yeah, running React on the server is not new. The new things is actually running Node.js features, so accessing the computer, the APIs, and many cool APIs. So with all these, client and server stuff, we might ask ourselves, where should we place the code? Like if we have something which is used on the backend or access Node APIs, or we just have some dynamic stuff on the client, shall we write it on the React component, on a separate file, on the backend, on Node.js? I don't know, like it's a mess. It's a lot of stuff. You can have many approaches, but we're gonna try to see how we can solve this today. In the end, if you get on this problem, you will understand that it's always a compromise between collocation and efficiency. That means either you write everything on a separate part, for example, loading data from the backend, accessing a database. You can just do it on the backend, so place everything on a separate file. You define it like that, and you just call it and send the data to the client, and that's okay. That's efficient in a sense. But at the same time, you may want to have data easily accessible on the component that uses it. For example, if we have a post here, we want to show the title on the post, and we may have to do a different fetch to the backend. We may want to change directly both the call to the backend and also the component that shows it. So having the usage of the data and also requesting directly the specific data that we want directly from the same component is also useful. This is not like the perfect example as a code, but the idea is that. So why did we arrive to Next.js? Well, first, it's a very well-taught framework because it's React-based, so like it's the most popular web library right now. So many libraries extend React, and it's very easy to use. We have a folder structure, which means we can just write everything in a special folder in our project. And the Next.js automatically creates paths and routes for us. Or, also the icon and stuff like that is already exposed. And also gives a lot of utilities for easier developer experience. So this is also an example to publish both that was the front end, but you can also publish the back end inside the same folder. So let's say we create an API folder and we just write the structure of the API path we want. You just write root.js or ts and export a dynamic function with the name get, put, patch, and etc. And you just have it. So you can just call it with the HTTP and return data. It's very easy to use. Also, Next.js has a very efficient build process. It was based on Webpack. Other frameworks now use mostly Vite. This is kind of a custom built way of building the project, because since it's a full stack framework, you can have client-side bundles, but also server-side bundles. We may also have shared bundles between the client and the server. So it has to manage all of these types of bundles. And now it has a stable TurboPack, which is the custom-made build process by Vercel, written in Rust, which is very efficient. And you can also use it to publish the website now. You can also have a preview of your website. So for example, if we have some dynamic data path, like for example, the API is a dynamic function, like also the pages. For example, we have a SSR page here, which was made on purpose as dynamic fetching. So we can see on the build how much every page weighs, if it's dynamic or static. So the circle on the left of the name of the page is static. Means that it's always the same page. And yeah, it's very useful to have this as a preview. And then, so for each page, we have many configuration parameters. We can just set them and export them from the page. So basically, with dynamic, for example, you can just say, I want this page to be static. So I want this to always be HTML and serve it as it was created in the first time. Or we can force dynamic, so it means always regenerate the page on a new request. And there's many other cool stuff. So let's do a little game. We're going to try to guess the frequency of revalidation of a page. So let's say 1 star is this page never gets updated, 2 monthly, 3 weekly, 4 daily, and 5 it must be always revalidated. So we want live data. Let's say we have a blog post. By raising hands, how much do you think it is updated yearly? Yearly? No one thinks yearly? Monthly? One person, just one person. Well, I also think monthly. Weekly? Okay, a few. Daily? Many daily, okay. Live data? I don't think so. Well, I would say monthly. Like, usually you write a post, maybe you update it after a week. But, once it's done, mostly. So I think monthly is the best. What about dashboard analytics? Do we want it to be updated yearly? No. Monthly? Weekly? Weekly? Someone? Daily? I would say daily. Live data? Might be an option, yes. I would just say daily. Maybe, like, for example, I think of Google Analytics. You just check every day. They don't show all of data as live. They just do like a computation every day, and you see by day, usually. Privacy policy, yearly, of course. I mean, I will not go on. Sport match, weekly, daily, live. Yeah, it's live. of course, when we see a sport match, we want to see the goals or the, yeah. So, this is all to say. There are different ways of fetching data. Let's see client side. We can see all the possibilities down here on the right for now. So we have client side. What is client side requests? It means you load the page and then you just run again a request to the backend. You ask, okay, I want this data. This is an example. So in React, you can just use effect, which is code run just after loading the page or on update of dependencies. There are no dependencies, which is the square array. So basically on loading this component, we will fetch the API blogs endpoint, just get the response and set it as a list of blogs. We can just render it. And this is the most simple and most common way of rendering method. Then we have server side. So server side is very interesting because overall helps with many other areas like CEO. Basically, we just ask for the page and we can have two behaviors. Basically, you wait for data on the server before returning the page. So you like, I don't know, ask the page, fetch the database, return the data from the database, and then also generate the page and return it to the client. So this is one step for the client. He just received the page with all the data instantly, and that's good. We may also want to return a part of the page and then stream in dynamically the server-side stuff. We can also do this with the power of suspense in React. So if we write the page like this, we have, for example, the page which is dynamic. It fetches with a dynamic database called list of the blogs. We can wrap this dynamic page with a suspense, showing a fallback loading indicator like a skeleton or just a spinner or something. And we just have it easily made. So we just have the page, return to the client, and a loading status. Then we have SSG, static site generation. This is basically the same thing as server-side rendering, but it's just done once. So you do it when you build the project. So yeah, basically have the dynamic page when you generate the project, but then you have it static just afterward when you publish it. This may be very useful for the privacy policy, for example. If you have like fetching data from another legal resource, then you generate it and it's static forever. Or the blogs, like maybe blogs is the best example. No, actually not, because the next one is for the blogs. Anyway, this is how you write SSG. So you force the page to be static, and then you just fetch. You know, you have this weird function called the generate static params, which allows you to, for example, also in a blog. In a blog, you want to have all the slugs already published as a URL, an endpoint. You get all the blogs or the posts, in this case, from the database. You just define this list of array of slugs available as an endpoint, and then you use it to generate the page. So basically, this is just run based on all the possible slugs given by that function. And this is just run on the build time. But then there is also a mix of the two. Let's say we have the blog, for example. If we have the website live, we publish the blog, but then after a week we want to update it. So we don't want to have live data. We don't want to regenerate the blog every time a user visits it. We want to have it built. We want to have a fast page for the blog. That means we would like to have static page, but we don't want to rebuild the whole website every time just to have a static page for the blog. We want to dynamically run a function to revalidate, in that sense, just the page for the blog we updated. So this is what ISR, incremental static regeneration, means, which is a mix of the two. you basically build the page, but you can revalidate with a couple of options. One is the time, so you can just set this parameter, which we saw earlier for the page. We can say this page we want to be revalidated every 60 seconds. That doesn't mean that every 60 seconds there is something running on the background which revalidates, but it means if someone visits this page, we provide the static version. After 60 seconds, if someone else visits the page, we want to serve a new updated version because potentially every 60 seconds this page changed. So what happens is from the 61st second, Next.js runs a background job which revalidates the page and returns the new version to the new user and so on. So for the next 60 seconds from the other request, we will have the cached data and so on. So yeah, we can manually trigger a revalidate of this with the path. There's also another method we will see later. So with the revalidate path, we can say /blog/1, for example. We want to revalidate this page, which is separate from the revalidate property, which might be, manual. So every time you, for example, update a blog, you just run this, and you tell Next.js, I want this page to be rebuilt on background, and that happens. So visitors will see the next build when they visit the page. Then there's also a very new and recent update with the PPR, partial pre-rendering. There's been some changes lately, so I will just tell you like the most known part of it for now. Basically, it's a mix of SSR and SSG. So it's not like you revalidate the page, but it's more like you compile static parts of the page as HTML, and then you serve and stream dynamic parts separately. So you basically just send a compiled page, and then also the dynamic parts streamed in when you have loaded them. This is how you write it. So basically you set an experimental flag on the page. You have the static stuff. So this is created on build time. You have the HTML for all the outer stuff. And inside the suspense, you define the dynamic part, which is executed like SSR. So it's a mix of the two. It's basically SSR, but compiled in a sense. It's experimental. In fact, 2 days ago, with the beta of Next.js 16, we are now at 15.4 or 5. It was just moved to a new flag. So that experimental PPR is now deprecated. Now it's experimental cache components as a new name, but is still referred to as PPR. So again, cutting edge. This is very recent. So dynamic I/O experimental cache. This is another layer on top of page, but also function caching mechanisms. So all of what we said until now was related to pages. So how we render the page, or how we fetch data from the page or from the backend on generating the page. This is more related to how you save data and also page content in a backend cache inside Next.js, which can be reused across all the website. Let's see more in detail so we'll understand better. So let's say we want to cache the function which fetches, let's say we want to get the latest goal on a match from the database. We may either run the fetch to the database every time, but we may want to cache it for a few seconds, for a few minutes. And we can just do this with a simple JavaScript tag, which is the use cache, which is a directive, and then also writing the cache tag. So we just have basically this function yeah, you can move that inside the function. Oh yeah, this is the example. So you get data, but you set it with use cache. If you don't write a tag or don't write a cache live, yeah, stuff like that, that takes the configuration from the Russell project. Anyway, yeah, you can just set this function to be cached. And once it is run, once you run get data, it runs into a cache inside the Next.js. And further calls of get data use access the cache inside Next.js instead of running the fetch. So basically, what it does is comparing the inputs of the function and the inputs of the function. And if the inputs or the time of cache is not over or changed, then you just return the first cached output of the function. So you can see how powerful this is. It's basically a layer of cache control dynamic into JavaScript, instead of having cache headers or potential database with, I don't know, Redis and stuff like that on front. It's into the project. So you can also set how much cache you want to for the backend, for example, 100 megabytes, a few gigs. You can do whatever you want. And you can control this with the cache live. So of course, for the sport match, we can say just cache live seconds. So every dot seconds, when you recall the function get data, Next.js understands, okay, more than 10 seconds passed, I want this to be revalidated. So the next call reruns the fetch. And then you can also, of course, override the cache live just by running a revalidate tag. So if you gave a tag to that function, you can just revalidate it with revalidate tag, which is kind of similar to revalidate path. So path is more related to the page. Tag can be related also to, the page too, but also to JavaScript functions. Brand new, Next.js 16, 2 days ago again. These are some 2 new functions available just for server actions. We haven't talked about server actions, but they're basically inline functions, which you can call as like directly calling the backend by your code on the client. If you want to talk about it, we can talk later, but these are some new functions available in server actions, which allow the first to just refresh and cache data. I can't tell you much about it. It's just got out, it's experimental, and it's on a beta. But yeah, it's to trigger a refresh of the page, basically, from the server. And this is a very powerful tag. If you have used the Next.js with server action, I really advise this, because this is basically a revalidate path and tag. Revalidate path, yes, and also tag. But it also includes refreshing the data from the server on the same request. So what does it mean? It means that when you usually run revalidate tag or revalidate path, you just tell the client, okay, now I'm gonna resend you the data which was streamed from the server. With this, so it's like a 2 callback thing. With this, instead of saying to the client, okay, I'm gonna send you a new update of the page, you just send the update of the page. So basically more efficient. Okay, that was it. Thanks for the attention. So I am trying to create a small community, maybe big in the future, about Next.js if you're interested. So I started this Instagram account because I saw no one does any Next.js content. But yeah, if you are interested, this is the QR code. Maybe you can just check it out. I just started it like a couple of weeks ago. So I'm going to start adding more content about best practices, recent libraries and stuff like that. And in case, yes, these are all my QR codes to connect. And that's also like a Telegram channel to talk about Next.js if you want. And this is the link to the slides if you need anything. Thanks.